raised $2.1 billion. Trade pivot just shattered America's grip on Africa. Welcome back to Voices of Africa, your unfiltered source for the truth that mainstream media refuses to tell. Drop your city in the comments because what I am about to reveal will explain why Washington is in absolute panic mode and why Captain Ibrahim Traore just delivered the most devastating blow to American economic imperialism in modern African history. August 2025. In a move that has sent shockwaves through every corporate boardroom in America and Europe, Burkina Faso, under the revolutionary leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traore, has just signed a $2.1 billion zero-tariff trade agreement with China. This is not just a trade deal. This is a declaration of war against 500 years of Western economic domination, and the American empire is absolutely terrified. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because Africa is witnessing the birth of a new economic order. This new order ensures that Africa's resources benefit its own people instead of enriching Wall Street billionaires. It was the agreement that ultimately fractured the empire. The date was August 15, 2025 in Beijing. In a ceremony that will be remembered as the moment American hegemony cracked, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Captain Ibrahim Traore signed what Western intelligence agencies are calling the agreement that changed everything. The numbers are staggering too. $1 billion in guaranteed trade volume over 5 years. Zero tariffs on all Burkina Bay exports to China. Preferential financing at 2% interest compared to World Bank's 8 to 12% technology transfer for advanced manufacturing and resource processing infrastructure development, worth additional $800 million. But here is what makes this absolutely explosive. 72 hours earlier, the United States had imposed crushing 50% tariffs on Burkina Faso's shea butter exports, the country's second largest export after gold. The American message was clear: submit to our economic control or witness the collapse of your economy. Traore's reply was even more direct. Within 3 days, China finalized a $2.1 billion agreement for shea butter with Burkina Faso. No quotas, no restrictions, no political conditions. Dr. Fatou Kabore, Burkina Faso's Minister of International Trade, who has a PhD from Harvard Business School but chose to serve her homeland, explained the strategic significance. The Americans thought they could starve us into submission by closing their markets. They forgot that China has 1.4 billion consumers who value quality African products. We did not just replace the American market, we upgraded it. The American empire strikes back. The American reaction to the China-Burkina Faso deal revealed just how desperate Washington has become to maintain control over African resources. Within 24 hours of the deal announcement, economic warfare escalation, United States Treasury expanded sanctions to include 47 Burkina Bay officials and their family members. Swift banking restrictions were an attempt to prevent Chinese payments to Burkina Faso. A pressure campaign was initiated against European allies to refuse products from Burkina Faso. Boycotts were orchestrated by corporations against businesses trading with Burkina Faso. Military intimidation. ARICOM deployed additional 3,000 troops to neighboring countries. Training exercises involving 12,000 soldiers conducted 50 kilometers from Burkina Faso's border. Drone surveillance increased to 24/7 monitoring of all major cities. Special forces insertion into refugee camps to recruit and train opposition fighters. Information warfare. $200 million emergency budget approved for anti-Traore propaganda. Coordinated media blitz across CNN, BBC, Reuters portraying the China deal as debt trap diplomacy. Social media manipulation using AI-generated content to create fake grassroots opposition academic propaganda. 25 Western universities received funding to produce research condemning African-Chinese partnerships. But here is what they did not anticipate. The deal was impenetrable. Chinese negotiators had learned from decades of American economic warfare. The $2.1 billion agreement was structured to be completely independent of Western financial systems, payments in Chinese yuan and digital currency, shipping routes through Chinese-controlled ports in East Africa, insurance coverage provided by Chinese state companies, legal jurisdiction under international arbitration, not American courts. Colonel Adu Sanfo, Burkina Faso's trade security coordinator, summarized the strategic breakthrough. For the first time in our history, we have a trade relationship that America cannot sabotage. They can impose all the sanctions they want. Our goods will still reach Chinese markets, and Chinese investment will still reach our people. The domino effect across Africa. However, the $2.1 billion China agreement was only the start. What frightens Washington is the chain reaction it has set off across the entire continent. Within a single month of the Burkina Faso-China agreement, Mali revealed a $1.8 billion mining collaboration with China, putting an end to French exploitation of its gold reserves that had lasted for decades. Niger signed a $2.3 billion uranium processing deal with Chinese nuclear companies, bypassing European middlemen for the first time in 60 years. Chad revealed negotiations for a $1.2 billion oil refinery built with Chinese technology, ending its dependency on expensive European fuel imports. Guinea disclosed a $3.44 billion Boyd processing facility backed by Chinese investment, doubling the value of its aluminum exports. The pattern was unmistakable. African leaders were using the Burkina Faso model to break free from Western economic control. Dr. Rivera Sanji, former executive secretary of the UN Economic Commission for Africa, called it the most significant economic realignment since decolonization. What TRAORÉ has done is prove that African countries do not need to choose between development and sovereignty. China provides something the West never did, a partnership free from political domination. The statistics present the full picture. China-Africa trade growth, 2020, $176 billion, 2024, $292 billion, which is a 65% increase projected, 2025, $340 billion, United States-Africa trade decline, 2020, $64 billion, 2024, $47 billion, which is a 27% decrease projected 2025, $31 billion. For the first time in modern history, Africa was trading more with Asia than with Europe and North America combined. The human stories of liberation. Behind the billions of dollars in geopolitical maneuvering are real people whose lives have been transformed by Africa's trade pivot. Aminata Sawato, a 34-year-old shea butter processor from Kudugu, represents the human face of this economic revolution. 3 years ago, I was selling raw shea nuts to European buyers for 200 francs per kilogram. They would process it in their factories and sell shea butter back to us for 2,000 francs per kilogram. We were trapped in poverty while they got rich from our work. Now, with the Chinese collaboration, we have our own processing plant in our village. We market finished shea butter to Chinese cosmetic firms for 1,800 francs per kilogram. We have retained the employment, the earnings, and our self-respect. Ibrahim Traore, who is not related to the president, a 28-year-old logistics coordinator, manages butter shipments to China. Before we had to ship through European ports, they controlled every step, the shipping, the insurance, the financing. They took 40% of our profits and service fees. Now we ship directly from the port of Tama in Ghana to Shanghai. Chinese companies provide everything, and they take only 12% for logistics. We tripled our net income overnight. Fatou Kore, a 41-year-old agricultural engineer, oversees quality control for Chinese exports. European purchasers persistently complained about our quality, required countless certifications, and used quality control as a justification for offering low prices. Chinese purchasers assess quality with fairness and pay market rates promptly. They view us as equals rather than charity cases. The transformation is measurable. Average income for SHA processors increased 280% in 18 months. Employment in processing facilities up 450%. Women's participation in export business increased from 23% to 71%. Village-level investment in education and healthcare up 340%. The technology revolution. But the $2.1 billion trade deal included something even more revolutionary than market access: Comprehensive technology transfer. Unlike Western companies that jealously guard their technical knowledge, Chinese partners are actively sharing advanced technologies with Burkina Faso engineers. The Ouagadougou Technology Center, constructed with a $180 million Chinese investment, is now home to sophisticated manufacturing labs. It features 3D printing for agricultural tools, automated packaging for exports, and international standard quality testing equipment. The center also includes R&D stations for innovation and a robust digital infrastructure with 5G and fiber optic networks, waste-to-energy facilities for sustainable development. Dr. Rasmanet Ouedraogo, director of the Technology Center, who earned his PhD from Tsinghua University in Beijing, explained the strategic importance. Western companies came to Africa to extract resources and export jobs. Chinese companies come to Africa to build capacity and create jobs. They teach us how to manufacture, how to innovate, how to compete globally. That is the difference between exploitation and partnership. The results are already visible. Manufacturing output increased 340% in 2 years. Technology patents filed by Burkina Faso inventors up from 3 to 47 annually. Engineering graduates saw a 280% increase as local job opportunities grew. Technology exports reached $67 million in 2024, up from nothing in 2022. The Continental Awakening. The success of the Burkina Faso-China partnership has ignited something powerful across Africa. Genuine economic confidence. Young Africans, 67% of the continent's population is under 25, are seeing proof that Africa can compete with anyone when given fair partnerships. Social media data reveals the scale of this awakening. Trade pivot, Twitter engagement, 890 million impressions across all platforms in 30 days. Content creation from young Africans in 54 countries. Organic support, 97% of content created by individual users, not bots or propaganda economic education content, is exploding. Videos titled How China Builds versus How America Extracts have amassed 67 million views. Educational content about African trade independence now reaches 45 million young Africans each month. Discussions about resource sovereignty are currently trending in 23 different African languages. Amara Dio, a 24-year-old economics student at University of Dar, represents this new generation. My parents' generation was told that without Western markets, Africa would collapse. My generation is watching Burkina Faso prosper by trading with China, selling to Asia, and building with Eastern partners. We are learning that the world is bigger than Europe and America, and Africa belongs in all of it. The educational impact is measurable. Enrollment in international business programs up 450% across African universities. Language learning. Mandarin Chinese is now the fastest growing foreign language in African schools. Student exchanges now see 37,000 African students studying in China each year, a significant rise from 8,000 in 2020. There has been a 67% increase in young Africans launching import-export businesses through entrepreneurship programs. The future is being constructed right now. Today, August 29th, 2025, Captain Ibrahim Traoré's $2.1 billion trade pivot has fundamentally altered the global economic landscape. The numbers tell the story of transformation. Burkina Faso economic indicators for 2025. GDP growth 6.8%, highest in West Africa. Export revenue up 340% from 2022 levels. Foreign currency reserves increased from $400 million to $1 billion. Youth employment up 280% in skilled sectors. Technology sector contribution to GDP grew from 2% to 11%. Continental impact. 15 African countries now have major trade agreements with China. Intra-African trade saw a 67% rise as nations leveraged Chinese infrastructure for mutual commerce. Manufacturing output in participating countries has surged by 290%. 23 African nations have now signed technology transfer agreements. Global implications. China now Africa's largest trading partner for 5th consecutive year. United States market share of African trade declined to 12% from 31% in 2015 European market share down to 23% from 43% in 2015. Asian market share increased to 65% from 26% in 2015. But the most significant change is psychological. African leader ERs now know they have alternatives to Western economic dependency. President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa captured this shift. Burkina Faso has shown us that we do not have to choose between development and dignity. We can have both, but only if we are brave enough to break free from old patterns. The storm ahead. However, Traore's trade revolution has made him the most targeted leader in modern African history. Intelligence sources reveal the scope of Western efforts to stop his model from spreading. Operation Trade Disruption. The classified Western response involves unprecedented coordination, economic sabotage, cyber attacks on Burkina systems, 47 major incidents in August alone, supply chain disruption, Western shipping companies refusing to transport goods to and from Burkina Faso, insurance blacklisting, European insurers canceling coverage for China-Burkina trade routes, currency manipulation, coordinated selling of CFA francs to destabilize regional economies, political interference, $340 million allocated for civil society programs aimed at creating opposition to trade media campaigns portraying Chinese investment as debt trap diplomacy, academic propaganda, Western think tanks producing studies predicting economic disaster from China, partnership diplomatic pressure on neighboring countries to isolate Burkina Faso military threats, NATO exercises involving 23,000 troops in West Africa, intelligence operations focused on identifying and neutralizing key advocates of the trade pivot. Proxy warfare is being used, with funding and training provided to opposition groups in Burkina Faso and its allied nations. There have been numerous credible assassination plots targeting Traore and his senior advisors. But African solidarity has never been stronger. The attempted destabilization has backfired, unifying African public opinion behind economic independence. The moment of truth. Brothers and sisters across Africa and the diaspora, we are witnessing the most important economic transformation in African history since independence. Captain Ibrahim Traore's $2.1 billion trade pivot is not just a business deal. It is proof that Africa can thrive without Western permission. For 500 years, they told us we needed them. For 65 years since independence, they convinced us we could not survive without their markets, their loans, their approval. Traore has completely debunked that fallacy. Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation once considered without hope, is now experiencing the most rapid economic expansion in West Africa. Young citizens of Burkina Faso, who previously dreamed of moving to Europe, are now establishing businesses and generating employment in their own country. The $2.1 billion China deal is just the beginning. 15 other African countries are negotiating similar agreements. Asian markets are opening to African products. Technology transfer is creating African manufacturing capacity. The American empire's grip on Africa is not just loosening, it is shattered. If you believe that Africa's resources should serve African people, write trade freedom in the comments. If you think trade deserves support for breaking the chains of economic colonialism, share this video with every African you know. If you are ready to support African leaders who put African interests first, subscribe to Voices of Africa and join the economic revolution. The approaching storm is imminent. Western powers will deploy every available weapon, economic, political, and military, to bring down any African leader who chooses Asian partners instead of Western superiors. However, Africa is prepared this time. This time we have proof that independence works. This time we have 1.4 billion young Africans who refuse to accept economic slavery. Captain Ibrahim Traore did not just sign a trade deal. He declared that Africa's future belongs to Africa. And that, my brothers and sisters, is why they will never forgive him. But it is also why we will never abandon him. Thank you for watching Voices of Africa. Together we are not just changing trade patterns, we are changing the world. See you in the next one.